Hello and welcome to the Successful Mentalist podcast. If this is the first time of you actually listening to our awesome podcast, yes, I can say awesome. I have this podcast. It's my podcast as well as Aidan's. I can say whatever the hell I want about it. It's an awesome podcast, but if this is the first time for you coming here and listening, first of all, thank you. I really hope you love what we're about to share. And just to give you a background, everything we share on this podcast and everything over the past 42 other episodes, we share about mindset, business skills and performance skills. If you want to visit any of our stuff, thesuccessfulmentalist.com is us. But of course, like I said, my name is Ashley Green, but I'm only one half of this podcast. So I'm joined by none other than my best friend and the fantastic co-host that is... I was waiting for him to intro then. I was waiting for a name, but I think he got put off by my intro sound. I'll say it for him. It's Aidan O'Sullivan!
Yeah, I did. I was like, well, how come I get a special intro? Not that I'm complaining, but how come I get a special intro yet the podcast doesn't have a jingle yet? It's just the law of the world. If any of our listeners out there want to design a nice little podcast jingle for us, by all means, create and send and give us the jingle.
Everyone's come onto this, Aidan, and literally they're here talking about mindset and fees. They're coming, yeah, I want to learn about this, and then we just come off like, hey, we're awkward as, but hey, that's how we roll. I love it. If you come to jam night, you'll resonate with any of that. But anyway, let's crack into the meat of the content. Let's not hold you back any further from the money, which is what you want to talk about today. Talking about the mindset of fees, and I want to crack this first of all with probably the biggest question, which is on everyone's mind. They're here and they're thinking, okay, I'm listening to this podcast because I don't actually know what to charge. So Aidan, can I just cut straight to the meat of the content and ask you the biggest, most difficult question in the world? How much should they be charging? How much do you charge as an entertainer or magician? What do you do?
Whatever you want, to be honest.
Well, there we go. Thanks for coming and listening to the Successful Mentalist podcast. Aidan said, charge whatever you want. There we go. Do we need to elaborate on it? No. Aidan, can you go deeper?
You really can charge whatever the heck you want. However, the biggest mistake that most people make is that they don't know what they want and they don't know how much they should charge because that's what they want. And we'll talk about this for in a little while, I'm sure, in terms of looking at the comparison game and looking at what other people are charging. But it really does boil down ultimately to what you want, not just now, but also with your life overall. And I know instantly you're probably thinking, what the heck is he on about? But really knowing your life vision for 3, 5, 10 years, knowing what you want to be doing, where you want to be living, what experiences you want to be having, what you want to be doing in that amount of time, it means that you can actually not only get clear on that and start taking action to get there, but it then allows you to map that into your business vision. And look at where do you want entertainment. If entertainment is your sole source of income, what are you going to have to do to get to that life that you're dreaming of and that life that you're mapping out there? So what is the actual business requirement? How many gigs are you going to have to get? And by default, by knowing how many gigs you're comfortable doing in, say, a week, you know what type of gigs you can do, or a month, or however you want to look at it, or however works best for you. But when you know how many gigs you want to be doing over the course of X amount of time, it really is a numbers game to say, right, I need that amount of money to fuel that lifestyle. So this amount of gigs at that amount will allow me to get there. It's really just a basic numbers game. It's really simple division, but you cannot do it the right way without knowing where you're going. And this is the biggest problem that a lot of entertainers actually make. It's like, what shall I charge? Well, I know other people that charge this amount, so I'm going to charge it as well. It's like, no, stop charging what someone else is charging. You need to charge what you need to charge for your life. Get selfish over this situation. It's bizarre that we look at others and try and work from that.
I'll be honest, when I first started out as an entertainer, and for quite a few years after that, I had no idea what to charge, Aidan. So literally all I'd done was ask for some advice, and the advice I got back was the advice that many entertainers get. Oh, well, have a look at what everyone else in your area is charging. You know, look at them, research into that. If you think you're better than them, charge a bit more. If you don't think you're as good as them, charge a little bit less. So I was going off that model, and I wasn't following the more appropriate model, which is what you've said. Base it upon your life, base it upon your lifestyle, base it upon yourself, because you're your own unique person performing in your own unique way. So why are you basing your fees off what someone else's business is doing? But I used to charge like that for ages, and it wasn't until not that long ago that I went through this process, Aidan, myself. And for those listening to the podcast, you would have heard that I tripled my fee. More recently, I've actually, I think, 5-6 times my fee by actually looking into what I need, what I want to fulfill the lifestyle I want, then looking into actually how many times a month I want a gig. Because there's something fantastic that you've pointed up there, which I would love us to spend a brief moment on, but looking actually into how many times you want to perform per month, because so often don't magicians say, well, I need to make 5k this month, but I can break it back and I know it's doable if I charge £200 per gig. I'll just do all of these. But then the problem comes in, they're actually a bit deflated. They're always performing and not actually having enough time for themselves. So I put those limitations in place. I said, I only really want to perform 1, 2, 3 times a month. That's it. And from there, I was easily able to backtrack my fee, and it's gone up drastically because now I've got a fee that suits me, is unique for everything I need. It's more fulfilling, it's more rewarding. I'm more financially comfortable. I can live the life that I want to live. And it means that I don't need to constantly gig over and over and over and burn myself out.
You know, this is really important stuff. And I want to make sure that people at this point know that, just to really emphasize it, you've not 5-6x'd your fee because of greed. It's not because you can. It's because you've put in these constraints that it's not feasible for you to do 10 gigs a month. Like, it's just, sometimes it's not feasible. But for other people, yes, that is exactly feasible. That's exactly what they want to do. And a lot of people, they think, well, I love performing, so I want to go out and do it as much as I possibly can. So I don't want to have to charge more to do 3 shows. And that is perfectly fine. There's literally no problem whatsoever by being able to go the opposite direction to Ashley. Ashley's gone, no, 3 gigs a month in this case. That's what I want. But you can easily say, okay, right, well, I would like 17 gigs a month. I would advise using a nice round number because maths, but 17 gigs a month, we'll go with that. If that's what you think is capable, you can do, if that's what you're comfortable doing, and you can work it out. But it has to come from your perspective. And I'm amazed that so many people, when they're looking at what they charge, they do exactly what everyone else is telling them to do. And the truth of the matter is that it's such a taboo subject. And when you ask other magicians, like, oh, how much should I charge? Oh, I'm not sure how to charge. Or what should I charge? We get into this position of, oh, go and have a look at what other magicians in your area are like. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's because the magician telling you to go and work out what's in their area is uncomfortable with sharing what they're charging because they know you're just going to go and copy it because it just doesn't make sense to do that. It's bizarre. It really annoys me.
Yeah, it's a strange old subject, and I think this stems much further because in life in general, I think people are scared about talking about money and finances, and I think that's where it comes from. But do you also think there's a mindset issue here, Aidan, that people are scared to charge more? Do you think they're scared to charge more both out of they don't want to perform less? They're worried that by charging more, they're going to get less gigs in, and therefore they're not actually going to make and hit those figures which they need? And do you also feel that they're worried that charging more, they don't feel that they're worth enough in what they're actually delivering to their clients? Do you think that's an issue maybe?
Yeah, I think most problems are mindset related when it comes down to finances and charging and fees. It really is mindset. And mindset, not just in terms of your sort of situation and your relationships with money in that sense, but the knowledge as well, your relationships with the knowledge of finances. Like, there is very few resources out there that say, oh yeah, this is how much to charge. Look, there's one resource that I found, a great book. It's called The Approach by Jamie D. Grant. If you can get yourself a copy of this, do it. It's really, really useful, especially for beginners. But in there, he writes an essay about what to charge, and he gives a simple model for anybody that wants to work out how much to charge. And he breaks it up into different types of performers. So like beginners, occasional workers, semi-pro workers, pro workers, and superstars. The superstars being like people on TV, people on Netflix, people who are just so celeb and popular, that in your case you could do any gigs that you like and charge however much you like. But for the average Joe, for us people, us workers in that sense, we've got to look at it differently. And he gives the example for pro workers, the easiest way to look at how much you should charge for a standard 2 hours of close-up gig. Just look at the average rent for a local 1-bedroom apartment in your area. Just have a look at that. And if you're going to do 1 hour, well, rather than just halving it, it's half it and then add 10% of that original. So, for example, a local, it might be £1,000 for a month of rent for a 1-bed apartment. So for 1 hour, rather than charging 500, you'd be charging 500 plus the 10%, which is 600. And again, maths. It's a maths show now. Terrible jingles and also maths. So this is the worst podcast ever about the most important subject. But you can scale it back from there. So if you're not a full-time pro and you're not you don't consider yourself professionally, well, you can just half it. And that's the easiest way to find your fees. And if you're not fully there, you're just doing the occasional gig every so often, well, you can half that and work it from there. Now, I don't particularly agree with this as an entire model in and of itself. However, it is really good to just get you that baseline information, because it is about where you are now. It looks at your situation, your sort of rent and your lifestyle. For example, if you're living in the centre of London or the centre of New York, well, your bills are going to be different to somewhere in Scarborough in the UK. I actually don't know where Scarborough is. I have no idea where that came from. But that's a really good idea in case people are just getting started to this. But that's only 50% of the problem, right? That's only, I don't know how much to charge, or I don't even know how I should think about charging. So what are your thoughts on using that as an approach, Ashley?
I think it's interesting, and I think if you are struggling, like if you really are struggling to work out how much you want in life, say for example, I don't know, many magicians, especially the younger kids, I guess, are kind of living at home with their parents, and they're like, oh, I don't pay any bills. How do I know what it costs to live? I think it's an interesting approach for them. And for those people that really struggle with the maths, it's interesting to at least get a figure. But I do think what we've suggested, backtracking from your own life, working out what you need and what you want to fulfill the lifestyle that you need and that you crave, and it's not out of greed, that's what you want to live like. I think that's the easiest thing, and then restricting it down by how many gigs you don't want. I think that's a better route, but it does make it easier, and if you don't want to go through that work and that backtracking, you just want to get a basic fee, then maybe that's an easy option. Like I say, especially for kids, if they can't work out those extreme numbers on what they need to actually charge going forward. Hey guys, it's Ashley here, and I just want to interrupt this awesome podcast today to tell you about one specific thing. You know, over the past few months, myself and Aidan have been smashing it out the bag with doing our own online shows. We've also been privately consulting for a varied mixture of people on their online shows. And as a byproduct, we've taken every single thing we've learned and we've condensed it and put it into an entire 14-day online course called Mastering Online Shows. The course is available for you guys now. You're gonna love it. It covers a variety of different things, like covering your own technology blueprint. We cover performance skills so you can actually engage and being an entertaining performer online. We cover the mindset problems which come up with being an online performer, and we also cover the 80-20 of marketing, as well as a million other things which are also included in the 14-day course. If you guys want to check it out, it's available now. Just check out community.thesuccessfulmentalist.com. That's community.thesuccessfulmentalist.com. Anyway, back to the podcast. I know that book, Aidan. We were speaking about it. There is one last thing, and it suggests about charging as a beginner. Can you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, so in the book, Jamie throws out the idea that you shouldn't be doing, as a beginner, 2 hours of close-up entertainment flat out. And for 1 hour, you shouldn't really be charging, or you can barter and you could try and get a fee, but you should aim to just do voluntary work and exchange value and that kind of thing, which I kind of agree with, but at the same time, I heavily disagree with. Like, I don't think anybody should be forced to work for free just because they're new to the industry. Like, you could come from an incredible performing career and you're a really top-class performer. However, you only know one ambitious card routine or something else incredibly basic like that you've just learned, I wouldn't say in that case that you should go and work for free because you're naturally good. So
It goes into an example, doesn't this? If you take it out of context of magic and say a beginner builder, someone's in the bricklaying trade, right? They're not going to start as a beginner bricklayer and go out and say, oh, yeah, no, I've got this booking, I'm going to build a house. Oh, but I'm a beginner. Maybe I'll just get a quote, a review and a nice testimonial for it. What I'll do is I'll just charge them for the bricks and all my time over that is for free. They wouldn't do that. You're putting in effort. You're putting in physical effort and you're doing the same when you're performing, right? So I really disagree with going out for free unless there is that real craving like, oh my God, I want to do it. It's a fantastic opportunity. I'm going to be performing for the Queen. And maybe that might be different, but you see where I'm coming from with that example.
yeah, so I want to make it really clear that I think what Jamie's going for here is rather than work for free, what I think the approach he's trying to share it from in this example is get the experience. Do what it takes to get experience. Don't worry about trying to land highball fees because as a beginner, the gig is far more important. And I think that's the important distinction to make. But yeah, I mean, it's a really good system. But again, it comes down to that is just a generic system. But for those that want to dig deeper and haven't quite pieced the dots together yet, if you can do this and have a look at not only do you know what one-bed apartments are in your area, you get used to what sort of fees the rent is in your local area, and if you can backtrack that to work out who your target client is and what houses they might live if they rent, and you can actually start going deeper and working out how much are they going to earn a month, where are they going to live, how much are they spending on bills, and what's their kind of lifestyle. You're getting really, really clear now on your ideal target client, so that when you go approaching them, you know a little bit more in terms of their financial situation, even though you've never met them before. But that's something that people can actually dig deeper in at another time if they want to.
Well, it's often the fear, isn't it? When you're approaching someone and you don't have that background, you're worrying, can they afford it? What happens if they can't afford it? And for example, say you've gone through this process, either the simple process which we've outlined from that nice little book, the approach, or you've gone through what we personally do is backtracking it from our lives and working out what we actually need. Like, if you've come to a process, especially with me, where I spoke on this podcast, I need to triple it, but now I've like 5-6 times my fee, like it went up drastically. If people are here doing that and they approach a client and they're a little bit worried about this fee, first of all, should they be worried about quoting it? And secondly, what happens if the client that they're quoting it to comes back and says, oh my God, that's a lot. I can't afford £2,000. I've only got a budget of £1,000. What would you say to that?
Well, Ashley, I would like you to come and do my show for me. How much do you charge?
Okay, can I have the details? Insert feedback, getting details. Wow, this is really great roleplay here. What's the event, Aidan?
It's a corporate thing.
Beautiful, right up my street. Now I've gathered all the information and know everything about the event. This is why I have an agent, because as you can tell. No, back on topic. First of all, I'm not going to be nervous in delivering my fee because I know it's what I want. And also, I believe it's what I deserve. It's what I need to fulfill the lifestyle. Like, I've not got that mindset issue of charging that much straight off the bat because it's a fee that suits me and I know I'm not just doing it for the sake of greed, as you outlined earlier. Aidan, I'm going to charge £2,000 for an hour's virtual show.
Oh, that's substantially more than I was expecting, Ashley. I only have a budget of £1,000.
Okay.
Can you work a little cheaper?
Well, obviously I can't offer my hour show because that is £2,000, but what I could do is offer a slightly different show, maybe a reduced time and a different kind of experience for everyone and all of the staff involved, or alternatively, I could find you another option and maybe find a cheaper magician for you.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. I'll do this thing. We stopped the rob. Let's break that down.
We have stopped the role play.
That's embarrassing.
I love that role play. Everyone's like, oh my God, these guys.
So good.
Let's break it down.
Yeah, so there's a couple of interesting points that are there, and this is just a very basic level stuff. This is just for just to get over that initial hurdle of, oh my gosh, how do I handle fees and stuff. But at the end of the day, Your client is going to say yes or no to any fee that you give them. You may as well make sure it's the right one for you. So just to emphasize that. If, however, they come back and they start negotiating as per the wonderful roleplay, and they ask the question of reducing because of their budget, well, you can go, like Ashley's just said, you can go and reduce the time. Most people would instantly jump to like, oh, well, an hour's show is £2,000, a half-hour show is going to be £1,000. And people would naturally jump to that. I mean, why wouldn't we? That's just the way we're trained to believe in so many different areas of life. Why shouldn't it be the same in magic? And that's from a client's perspective. But equally, you can do the other thing, which is to actually change the show and change the dynamic in terms of not just what you're offering, but there's a really great phrase, and I don't know where it comes from, but it's like we can always remove the elephant or remove the rabbit. I genuinely cannot remember where the phrase is from. Probably children's entertainment because of the rabbit, removing the rabbit. I don't know. If anyone listening has any idea what I'm on about, reach out to us so we can actually fill in the blanks. But what that quote, that line means is quite simply, you remove the rabbit. And in the case, maybe in the children's entertainment, it's like, oh, I don't have a budget that high. That's perfectly fine. I can definitely meet your budget. However, what I would have to do, I wouldn't be able to bring the rabbit for this show, but I could do this instead. And suddenly you take out elements of it and you mold the show. It helps kind of customize it in a way, but it helps emphasize that, oh no, we really, really, really want that thing. So negotiation, there's the option. It's just a streamlined straight cut, change the quantity or the actual, I don't want to say the quality because you shouldn't ever downgrade the quality of your show, but you can adjust what you're actually putting in.
So this is a fascinating point. You're not just reducing your fee for the sake of it, just to do the gig, right? Because otherwise, surely, if you just reduce your fee, and if I offered you that hour show for £2,000 and then I accepted it for £1,000, surely that just shows I was just trying my luck. And instantly, I've just devalued my services and outlined to them saying, yeah, I'm not actually worth £2,000, I'm only worth £1,000. I was just chancing it, right?
You know, this is the big problem. Most people, they're more desperate for the gig than they are their regular fee. And that's why the discounting and the price drops happen so much. And sometimes, yes, the gig is definitely worth substituting the fee and dropping your fee. However, you must make sure that there is the value exchange there. So if you are halving your fee specifically for this one event, what is the rest of that fee going to make up to? You book this £2,000 show for £1,000. Where is the other £1,000 coming from? What is it? What does it look like? Does it look like a video testimonial or and an introduction to somebody that you wouldn't usually have access to? Or what does it look like? What other doors are being opened rather than just being delivered your full fee? But yeah, it's a really weird thing because most people don't do it out of sort of like they don't do it for a bad reason. A lot of clients don't do it for that because at the end of the day, you've got to realise that depending on the event, your client's probably working with a lot of different suppliers and they've probably got a lot of different expenses. So chances are they're going to try and save a little bit of money where they can. That's part of like the human condition. It's just natural and normal. So don't always think that people asking for less money is them neglecting your act or anything like that. It really sometimes is just a matter of they're just genuinely being human and asking if they can save a little bit of money.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, 100%. You shouldn't just reduce it just for the sake of it. There's got to be a reason there. Like we say, you've got to make sure that you're not just taking the mick with your fee, because that's all it's going to seem like if you reduce it. But there is one final question that it kind of leads on to here, Aidan. Like we've spoken about how to charge from the offset, what some people do, easy systems to know kind of what to charge, what we do by looking at our life, what we want, how much we actually want a gig, what to do in certain scenarios. But ultimately, there is one final question, and that's inconsistency in fees. You know, some people might still be there and might be thinking, okay, this is how much I want to charge, and I know that this company actually can charge £5,000, but this company can charge £500, and they know that their normal fee is £500, right? So they're going to take the gig at both companies, but they want to up it to £5,000 for this other company. What do you think of that? And where do you think there's a problem, first of all, with inconsistency in fees and trying to get more based on the scenarios, or what do you think here?
Well, this is a question, isn't it? This is the big question. At first, it might seem like, oh yeah, great. Let's jump to that. I mean, we can argue on either way, right? You change your fee to get more out of a company. It's greed, but you keep your fee lower to get in with a company because it's going to pass you to the next level. It's tactics. It's strategy. It's success. It's like you can look at each one in either way. So really, I guess it's kind of up to the performer and up to the actual act involved. But personally, I wouldn't inflate my fees just because I knew I could. Instead, I would much rather, because I don't need it. I don't. There's no point me charging £5,000 for that specific event if I only need £500 from that show. Like, sure, I would take £500 plus any other opportunities that are there. And for me, I'd probably even spin it if I said, like, this is my fee, and if they commented on it like, oh, that's a lot less than we was expecting, I personally would probably address it and just say, well, a lot of people would inflate because they know you're a bigger company. But for me, this is literally what I need. And I'd much rather focus on making the event better or working with you and meeting the people there. So I much prefer, and this is the bit that will get you gigs, it will secure you gigs. I much prefer the opportunity to communicate with you, and I much prefer the opportunity with you than I do some numbers in a bank account. Bam. Instant respect and instant credibility.
Boom. That's fantastic. You got your friendship. You're now in their network. You're going to get more. And the other thing is, if you really want to do up it, and you really think, oh, maybe this is a good opportunity, or maybe Christmas is coming up, I didn't factor it in, I maybe need a bit more. Well, you can always just, if you don't want to just up your fee for the sake of it, which we both think is wrong. We both think is greedy and silly, because what happens if those two clients talk to each other and be like, hey, I paid £5,000 for this show. How did you only pay 500? Now there's a problem. But what you could always do is deliver better value, offer more of a service, say, hey, I could also do this as well. Hey, I could help you run the event, and that would justify charging more, right?
100%. It's clear cut in that sense. If you are worth more and you're bringing more to the table, then yes, you can charge more. If you're there genuinely to support and help run the event, like, sure, you go and do your show for £500 for the company, and you know they've got a budget of £5,000. Well, if you've got the skills to maybe host the entertainment for the evening, and you can host the stage events for that evening, well, now you can add an extra fee. You can upsell. You can always add more when the value is there, but you really shouldn't just up your fee because you can. It does no one any favours, if I'm honest. And this does bring me into a point that I read from The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Fantastic book, highly recommend it. But in there, chapter 3, he talks about the premise of never enough. And this is kind of ties in here, and he gives out 4 real sort of behaviours of 4 real clear-cut things to actually work out what enough is, and one of them quite simply is understanding that just some things they're just not worth the risk. And in this case, just upping your fee because you can, is it worth the risk? Well, no, you've got a reputation issue there. If they do contact and the clients do talk and they find out that you've 10x'd your fee just because you could, like, that's a real big dampener on your reputation. And is it worth it? No. Even if you get 10 times the amount for that one show, no, it's just not. But the other points in there's 4 real clear points in this chapter. We've kind of actually covered them through what we've said already, if I'm honest. But the first is actually that the hardest financial skill is to stop moving your goalposts. Stop trying to go more and work out that you need more and more money. You can confidently get this amount of gigs at this amount of money. Well, the obvious thing for most people then is to think, oh, well, I can charge more, right? Can I do more and more? And you try and chase your financial metrics, and you make them bigger. It's the natural thing. We're encouraged to earn more money, earn more money, earn more money. And as a result, the goalposts are always stretching and we're never really happy and fulfilled with the fee that we're charging. Whereas if you can do that work like we've just suggested and work out where your life vision is going to be in, say, 3 to 5 years, and then look at your career vision and map the path there so that you can work out how many gigs you want to be doing and how much it's going to cost to get you there. If you can map that in, you've got your goalposts now. In 3 to 5 years, once you've hit that target, then you can change them. But doing this constant every single gig, changing the goalposts around, it's just going to cause chaos. It's going to be really awkward and really difficult for you to actually manage. The second point in that chapter is actually social comparison. And like we've spoken about this, looking at what other people charge. And there's a reason that like the $1 million morning routines or the $1 billion or the routine of, or the daily habits of the $1 billion CEO, or insert generic BS here. There's a reason that those videos are so popular. Like we could publish one on TSM and it would get thousands of views within the hour. Or like Ashley's looking at the Ashley Green morning routine, trademarked from a couple of episodes back. I don't think people would watch that one, unfortunately, Ashley. But the idea is that we're comparing ourselves to others, and we look at the daily routine of someone like Tim Ferriss, and we think, oh my gosh, he's incredibly successful. That's what he's doing in the morning. If I do that, I am successful, or I must become successful. And the truth is that just doesn't work like that. It's really odd, and we see other people's tasks and jobs, and we try and do our own version of that in the hope that that's going to get us to where we want to go, but they're on different paths entirely. And in his book Transcend, and Scott Barry Kaufman, who's a fantastic psychologist, awesome coach as well, he gave this example that we're trying to self-actualize to someone else's dreams. We're trying to self-actualize someone else's self-actualization, and it just doesn't work. It really doesn't work, and that's where this whole fee thing is. I know that takes the context of fees into something far bigger, but it's the same here. If we're trying to charge what other people are charging, well, we're missing the most important element of the charging in the first place. The why are we charging? Why are we bothering? The third point is actually enough is not too little. So many people think that once we're hitting the amount that we've set those goalposts based on our life, and we're achieving that money and that financial metric. We're ticking over. We're getting exactly what we need. What is enough for us? We're then encouraged to go and get more. And it takes a real discipline to be able to say, no, I don't want more. I don't need to go and chase more, because enough is enough. This is what I personally need. So I'm not going to sabotage my time, my energy, my resources, which is kind of point 4 that we spoke about earlier. Some things just aren't worth the risk. Is sabotaging your reputation worth the risk of upping your fees? Is sabotaging your overall freedom by doing more gigs and having more stress because you're traveling the world constantly on tour, or going from corporate event to corporate event, constantly on the road every minute of the year, or every minute for 10 months of the year? Are those 10 months of your year really worth it? Well, probably not. It's probably rewarding to do once. Like, we know countless cruise ship entertainers, actually, that go on the cruises and they enjoy the cruises for a couple of years, and then they stop because it's just not what they wanted, but they're glad they did it. So really being able to say no to the right things all ties into this as well. But yeah, they're the 4 from that chapter. Hardest financial skill is actually stop moving the goalposts. Stop comparing yourself to other people, because it's just a pointless exercise. Enough is not too little. Enough is enough for you, because you know why you need that. And then finally, some things just aren't worth the risk. But I know I've just gone on for quite a bit there, but I feel like that was a really important chapter to actually bring up on the subject.
It's really useful, and it's a nice summary to this podcast, because, you know, some of the points we've shared are loosely spoken about, but others, no one talks about this, especially like what you mentioned there about it just being enough. You don't need to go miles beyond and all of that, and especially about charging the same even if there's that opportunity to go miles more. I think this is really, really useful stuff, and I really hope you guys have got a lot of value out of this podcast. I would genuinely, actually, it would be really fascinating for me and Aidan to hear your thoughts. So if you're on the TSM app, whack your thoughts of this podcast episode over in the TSM app in the network. Like, we would love to generally hear what you think, and maybe if you've got any tips on how you generate your fees or how you approach giving your clients the fees and securing those. So I think this is a really fascinating subject which we would love to jam more over in the app. But I am very conscious we are going on for time here. I just want to say massive, massive thank you for all of the new lovely people that have been listening to this podcast. As always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll stay up to date with all of the fantastic new content we've got coming out. We've got some brand new episodes that are coming out next month. And remember, every single week is a brand new episode just for you. So stay tuned. Keep an eye out for The Successful Mentalist. Hit us up on social media and we'll see you next week.